Welcome to Update. We have several special guests for you here today. Mick Kupferson with he's the Community Development Director for the City of Bunnell. And we also have Bo Falgo, who is the City Administrative Coordinator. And we're here to talk about brownfields. And probably the best place to start is, Bo, why don't you give us just a thumbnail description of what a brownfield is?
Sure. A brownfield is one of those properties that typically may have contamination or have a perception that the property is contaminated. Some examples would be an abandoned gas station, a former industrial chemical plant facility, but it could just be an abandoned shopping center that used to have a dry cleaner in it, and folks are unsure whether it's a brownfield or not. So just that perception can make it a brownfield as well. Okay.
And people love acronyms. Feed Coalition. What exactly is the Feed Coalition? Mick?
Flagler Economic Enhancement District.
Okay. And what's its purpose? What does it do?
Its purpose is to provide a property owner at no cost an opportunity to have an environmental assessment performed on his property at no cost to him, which saves the property owner between $3,000 and $20,000. And a copy of the environmental assessment is provided to the property owner once it's completed. And by knowing the true site conditions, the property becomes more marketable for redevelopment and sale. Also, the inventoried property receives increased exposure in the marketplace at no cost to the property owner.
So it really helps the property owner to be part of that program, to have this assessment.
Absolutely.
Okay. And who's the administrating agency for this?
Well, it's a grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. Okay. It's administered by Flagler County with the partners of City and Bunnell and the City of Palm Coast. And we all kind of work together as a coalition to help those property owners move their property from maybe a perceived contamination to hopefully redevelopment and some economic activity in our community.
What's the grant application process? How does it work?
All the property owner has to do is approach one of the coalition members, either Katrina Austin, Bo, or myself, and express interest in the program.
And then you have to look to see if the property qualifies and all that?
That's correct.
Bo, Palm Coast is what, 1999, just formed? You don't think of brownfields being there because it's such a young city. Are there brownfields in Palm Coast?
Sure.
Or properties that qualify under this program?
Yeah, sure. And part of that is the real or the perceived. While we're a young city, 15 years old, there was development before the city was a city. And so, yes, there are still some opportunities in the city of Palm Coast for brownfields. And as Mick stated, encourage any property owner that may be interested in seeing his property go from a brownfield to a redevelopment to approach one of the members.
Okay. And the overall, I think you've kind of gone over it, but the overall advantage to the property owner to be enrolled in this program is what?
Well, it empowers the property owner and other stakeholders to work together to assess potential cleanup and reuse of the property.
Okay.
And when a developer is looking at redeveloping a property, the biggest cause for concern is the unknown. So really what this program does is allow property owners to find out if there is contamination on their property or if that perception is merely just a perception, and can help them move the property from vacant, abandoned to redevelopment and hopefully some economic activity on that property.
So if someone comes along and is interested in the property, having this certification would be a great plus because you already know what the condition of the property is and everything?
Right. Most developers, if there's an unknown, they walk away and move on to the next piece of property. So if you're a property owner and you have a property you're not sure what's on it, you're going to get passed over for development opportunities. So this is a real benefit, and the grant will pay for the cost of those assessments.
Does the property owner have to contribute anything in this process?
No, not towards the assessment. It's completely paid for by the grant.
We've gone over a lot of things, but is there any other environmental advantages to this program?
Yes, from an environmental standpoint, you're looking at properties that are underutilized but have already been developed. And if we can bring these properties back to a marketable state, then that means that's one less area of raw land or forested land that will now be developed for the first time.
That also helps the cities too. When a building comes in and it's a going business or concern, there's more tax dollars generated than from just a raw piece of land.
Exactly.
Well, thank the both of you for coming here. Flagler County working with the cities, and the cities working with us, and we'll get the job done. We've got more guests coming in, and we're going to take a little break here, and we're going to talk more about the program. Please join us.
Don't be left holding the boat. Protect yourself when you sell, donate, or dispose of your vessel. For your own protection, you are required by law to transfer the title and notify the Department of Highway Safety and Motor Vehicles within 30 days if you sell, donate, or dispose of any vessel. If you don't, you could be legally responsible if the vessel is later found abandoned, sunk, or derelict. Don't rely on the new owner to transfer the title for you. Title transfer is fast and simple. It's easy to transfer vessel ownership or notify the DHSMV if you sell, donate, or dispose of your vessel. Go online to www.hsmv.state.fl.us/forms/notice.html and download the notice of sale form. Fill it out and take it to the tax collector's office with the title documents, a copy of the bill of sale or transfer, or a receipt of disposal from the landfill. Remember, protect yourself. Don't be left holding the boat. For more information on derelict vessels, check out myfwc.com/DV on the web.
Welcome back to Project Update. We have two additional guests. We've been talking about Brownfields and how they work in the community, and Brownfields grant and the Feed Coalition. And we have with us Brad Tampa from he's a manager with Terracon, and we also have Katrina Austin, Economic Development Project Coordinator?
Manager.
Project Manager, okay. And I want to start off with the question that, what's the consultant's, you're the consultant,
Yes.
What's the consultant's role in all this?
Well, when the Feed Coalition put together the grant application and they won the grant from the EPA, part of it is they select a contractor to help do the implementation, which is more the technical, environmental end, the
Right.
phase 1, the phase 2 work, help them with inventory. So we work very closely with Katrina, who's the project manager on this, and we work back and forth with different tasks, how the grant is broken down into tasks, and we coordinate with her and do the technical end of the grants, the environmental technical end.
What's the specific requirements of the grant?
It's broken down into several tasks. There's obviously the EPA is very big on tracking and very big on project management, so that's one of the tasks, because we have to report to the EPA quarterly about what money was spent, where it was spent. We have to do a public outreach portion, which is engaging the community, part of what this is. And then we also do the phase 1s, which are the environmental assessments, the
Right.
phase 2s. We have a public health component to this grant. And then also there's what am I missing?
We have 6 tasks. So there's public health, there's outreach, there's project management, there is the actual environmental, and then there's 2 more.
Inventory.
Inventory, 1 more.
And the cleanup planning. They allow, if we do run into a situation where there is a contaminated site, it allows some of the funds to be used for planning on how to clean it up. So that's a very helpful task. And that's kind of flexible in how we use it depending on the particular property.
Okay, well, Katrina, do we have some contaminated sites in Flagler County?
Well, let's not confuse brownfields with contamination.
No.
Bo had previously said there's a perception of contamination because the property has been underutilized or there was an industry there prior to that could have. So we wouldn't necessarily know if we have contaminated properties in Flagler County until we go ahead and do the phase 2s. Phase 1, you can explain a phase 1, what a phase 1 is as opposed to a phase 2?
Sure. A phase 1 is basically your first environmental assessment.
Right.
It's like your first doctor visit. We look at the property, we go visit it, we look at the history for the property, and we evaluate all the environmental records we can find for that property and come to determination whether, for instance, say there was a dry cleaner there or there was a gas station there, would it need to be further assessed, and then we make a recommendation to do what's called a phase 2, which is where we actually go out to the site and we collect soil and groundwater samples and have them analyzed
The
in the
actual
lab.
tests, in other
Actual
words,
testing.
on the land.
And based on that, we can determine if there is a problem. And unfortunately, some of the perception is that if we go to the phase 2, that the site's contaminated, and oftentimes that's not the case. Oftentimes we go out there, we think there might be an issue, we're not sure, so we recommend a phase 2, and we go out there and collect samples, and you know what, we don't find anything, or if we find things that are maybe below the state standards for cleanup. So there's a whole myriad of options that are available.
Well, there's a wide range of use of properties in the past, like gas stations, and
Sure.
where there could be some contamination, but not really a problem.
And we did do a phase 1 on a property that did have some concerns. It had a wreck on it. So, and then when we went back and looked at it, there really wasn't an issue. And the good thing about that was we had a prospect business come in who had identified that property as a property they were interested in. We went ahead and did the phase 1 on it. Once they knew what was going on with that property, they wanted to move forward with the purchase of the property. It ends up being less expense for a business to go ahead and take a property that's already standing, that has already gone through the permitting process, instead of trying to permit what's called a greenfields, which is nothing but raw land.
Right.
So the brownfields, it's almost better to have a brownfields property in some cases if the remediation isn't going to be that costly than it is to have raw land.
Can you have a brownfield designated in a smaller area as part of a bigger area?
Well, there's two differentiations there. You have a brownfield site and then you have a brownfields area. A brownfields area can be one site or a group of sites together. And to be in a brownfields area, that is designated by resolution by local government. So to have a complete area, it has to go before the board, and they have to designate that as a brownfields area. A brownfield site is one individual parcel of perceived contamination.
Yeah. The brownfields area is just a designation that the city does to allow them to go after a grant. It doesn't identify any specific properties. It just says, okay, this area of our city, we want to designate a brownfields. Like for instance, in Jacksonville, most of the downtown area has been designated brownfields. It doesn't say that any particular site is there that's a problem. It just says the whole area is a brownfields.
And what's really great about this is that if a property owner has a site that's within a designated brownfield area, they can opt out as an individual. This is completely voluntary.
Right.
So once that brownfields area is designated, and it has to be public noticed as well, the property owner comes forward and says, I don't want my parcel involved in that.
And so the public notice part of this, why is that so important?
Anytime you have a community a community project or something that is going to involve the community, you want to educate them as much as possible. The public notice is anytime you have a resolution by Florida law, statute, you have to public notice anyways. But by engaging the community, for example, this interview that we're doing, it's going to alleviate the misconceptions that people have when they hear that dirty word brownfields. So it's education, it's getting people vested in their community. The more public access we grant to what we have going on, to this grant program, the better informed the community is, the easier it makes our job. And the better vested they are.
Exactly, and she's exactly right. And that's one reason the EPA, over the years, when they developed this program, they realized they were getting constant questions from people like, why are these people in our area doing sampling? Why are they out here? Who are they?
Right.
And then the EPA realized, well, we're not doing a very good job of informing the communities or getting that word out. So part of the grant is geared towards informing the people, getting their input into, hey, part of it may be, what do you foresee this area to be developed as in 10 years? Do you see it as a residential area? Do you see it as a commercial industrial? Help us define these goals, and we want you to be informed on what we're doing. So,
what other efforts are you taking towards getting the word out to the public?
We're in the process of developing a website right now. That website is in being edited and reviewed. That should be available in a few weeks. We're looking at probably around mid-January when that should launch.
Right.
We have done community outreach meetings. We have sent mailing out to different organizations and have presented, let's say, to the commercial realtors,
Right.
property owners, interested parties, anybody who wants us to come and speak with them. We're engaging with the high school. They have a program that they're doing right now. We are doing a public health assessment portion with the Department of Health. Public notices, we've done interviews in the paper, we're pretty much taking advantage of as many free resources as we can, and then we're going ahead and we're spending some of the grant dollars to go ahead, like I said, develop a website and things of that nature. If anyone's interested in what we have going on, they can always contact me or one of the other coalition members, Bo Falgout or Mick Cuthbertson, at their cities. They can email me at kaustin@flaglercountyedc.com. They can also call me. My number is 386-313-4070.
Strikes me is Flagler County a little bit unusual? The cities, the county joining together, or are most brownfield grants like that, or are they different?
No, actually, it's a variety. There's some individual cities that do go after grants individually, but then there are some coalitions who group together, and sometimes that's more advantageous. They can get a little bit more money from the EPA if they're a coalition, and so it's a mix of both.
Actually, yeah, the cap for coalition grants is a lot higher than it is for individual municipalities. Our grant is $600,000, which is $300,000 towards petroleum and $300,000 towards hazardous waste. Sometimes, from what I understand, the coalitions, it's a little more complicated, but we have such a wonderful partnership with the City of Palm Coast and Bunnell and Flagler County. It really is a breeze. It really is working on this grant together.
It's good for everybody to work together to achieve something that's good for all the property.
And from my point of view, she's exactly right. The county does do a very good job of bringing in Bunnell and Palm Coast to work together on this grant. So it's been a very easy group to work with. I mean, they communicate really well. Katrina's done a great job of making sure everybody's on the same page with what we're doing, and I think that's a benefit to what we're doing, and hopefully it will help the communities. And in EPA, the Brownfields grant is very good for helping development. I mean, it's an environmental grant, but it's really geared towards development, redevelopment, and that's can get over that initial hurdle. People may or may not understand that just about any time you buy or sell property, or you go to a bank and say, hey, I want to buy this property for $1 million, I need a bank loan, the bank will require a phase one. And the beauty of the grant is that it pays for that.
Right.
It pays for, if there's a phase two, it pays for that.
I can't see of a disadvantage for a property owner to go through the process.
Well, I'll tell you what the disadvantage is. The disadvantage is if there is contamination found on that property, the property owner is, they're liable for the cleanup. They're responsible for the cleanup. You can't go back and prove that it was done by a previous property owner. Once it's determined that it's there, it is the responsibility of the property owner to clean it up.
Okay.
So
Now,
there's the downside to that.
And she's exactly right. But there are also other grants that the EPA does have for cleanup of sites. It's something that has to be applied for and gone after, like the Brownfields grant was, but it does give the opportunity to do that. And it does, the bottom line is eventually the site's going to have to be cleaned up.
Right.
So there's no getting around that. At some point, it's going to, if the site does have a problem, it does have to be cleaned up. At least in this case, they're getting a large percentage of the upfront stuff paid for.
And once it's cleaned up, it's much more valuable.
Oh yeah.
Well, and even people who have no plans on selling their property, is that the legacy that they want to leave to their children or their grandchildren?
Or to the community.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, thank you, Brad, for joining us, and Katrina I think you've done a good job in educating all of us on brownfields and the advantages. And thank you out there for watching. And please join us again for another project update.